let's begin by cultivating our motivation and really have a sense of joy at being alive. So instead of taking our life for granted, really feel joyful about having it, and especially about having the possibility to encounter the Dharma and the leisure to learn it and practice it. And then let's make a very strong determination to make our practice beneficial for all living beings, especially considering that they have all been kind to us and our whole opportunity to practice is due to their kindness. And so let's aspire for full enlightenment as a way to repay their kindness, because through becoming a Buddha, we will have eliminated all the hindrances to being able to benefit others and generated all the qualities and abilities necessary to benefit them most effectively. Let's take a moment and generate that motivation. Okay, so did you contemplate the 8 freedoms since last week? Yeah? Did you get a sense of what it means to be free of being born in the unfortunate realms? Yeah? So I think this meditation can be very, very effective to remedy the self-pity mind. You know, the self-pity mind. So, our mind that just feels sorry for ourselves and everybody else has a better opportunity than me and I'm so deficient and the world is mean to me and on and on and on. But when we really think about our precious human life, then all of that gets cut because we see we have a fantastic opportunity already to do what's important. Okay, now if we don't aspire for the Dharma and we're aspiring for worldly things, then yes, you can feel sorry for yourself all you want to, because there's always going to be somebody who's more physically attractive to you than you. There's always going to be somebody who's more intelligent, somebody who plays the violin and the guitar better, somebody who's a better soccer player. There's always going to be somebody better than you. So if you aspire for worldly gains, then forget precious human life and go ahead and feel sorry for yourself. Yeah? It's great, isn't it? Have ourselves a long pity party. Yeah, with our sad music of poor me. But if we really aspire to advance spiritually and to purify our mind and generate all of our good qualities, then meditating on the precious human life doesn't give any space for the self-pity mind, because we see that we have such a fantastic situation already. So there's nothing to feel sorry for. Okay. Now I know for some of us who've spent a long time feeling sorry for ourselves, it's really a challenge to give that up. It's so comfortable to feel sorry for ourselves and to feel like the universe has been mean to us and that we're entitled to have it better. Yeah? Right? You all feel sorry for me? So, we can get really stuck in this, but what good does it do? Absolutely no good. Yeah? You know what I have as a pattern that correlates with my self-pity mind is, and feeling entitled, the sense of entitlement that I should have it better than I have it. Why? Well, because I'm me, so the universe should be better to me. And then when I'm unhappy, I have all the right in the world to sit and mope. And, this is the good one, without me having to say anything, other people should realize I'm unhappy. And then they should do their utmost to fix the situation so that I can be happy again without me having to say anything. Yeah? Any of you have that mechanism? So I can mope and sulk, and other people are supposed to notice I'm unhappy and come and say, "Children, dear, you're so unhappy. What can I do to make it better?" And then I can just go. And ignore them and continue sulking. Yeah, because they need to offer me a better deal than that. Yeah, so this can, I spent quite a long time doing that. Yeah, and then when other people didn't read my mind and realize I wasn't happy and offer to fix the world for me, then I'd get really angry at them. Yeah, and when they came to even offer help, I'd say, oh, like this. Okay, but when you really meditate on precious human life, there's no space for that kind of rubbish. There's just no space. Yeah, because we realize that we have this opportunity that it was very difficult to come by, difficult to create the causes for a precious human life. And we also see that it's extremely valuable in terms of spiritual practice, and that it's not going to last forever. So we have a real sense of urgency to make use of it. And we're going to come upon some examples. If I speak fast enough tonight, we'll get to that section. Some of the Tibetan examples for how happy we should feel. Okay, so we are going to continue. For those of you who had the book, we're at the bottom page 20, top of page 21. We're talking about the 10 beneficial circumstances or opportunities. They're also divided into 5 personal opportunities, okay, and then 5 circumstantial ones. So the personal opportunities, okay, being born as a human being, 1. 2, in a central place. 3, with sound sense organs. 4, not holding wrong views. That's what this text says. However, most texts say not having committed the 5 heinous actions. Okay? And then 5, having faith in the Buddhist doctrine. Okay? So let's look at those. First of all, being born as a human, so really appreciate it. We're a human. This is great. With human intelligence, we can do so much. We're in a central place. Okay? A central land is, it can be geographical. So living in Bodh Gaya, or it can be where the Prajnaparamita and the Mahayana is found. So where there are Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. In other words, where there's the opportunity to practice the Dharma. Now, I must say that in recent years, America has become more of a central land than it used to be. When I started out, it was very difficult to learn Buddhism here in English. Now it's much easier. So things have really progressed. Okay, with sound sense organs, so being able to see and hear and think properly. Okay, not holding wrong views, but like I said, most texts have not committing the 5 heinous actions. So not killing one's mother, one's father, an arhat, causing schism in the Sangha, or drawing blood from the Buddha. Okay, and then the 5th one is having faith in the Buddha's doctrine. And I think, this is an especially important one to really appreciate inside of ourselves, that we have the karma to have faith and interest, because how many people are there on this planet that might be very close to Buddha's teachings or teachers or Dharma texts, but there's no interest whatsoever. Absolutely none. Yeah, so I think this is an important thing to really appreciate in ourselves, that we have this interest. Okay? And appreciate the fact that our senses are sound too. We very easily could have been severely injured or have, multiple physical difficulties that would, we could still learn the Dharma, but would make it, much more difficult for us. So I think it's very important to appreciate this and not take it for granted. I keep thinking of, what was his name, the guy who played Superman? Reeves? Yeah, Chris Reeves, And then being tied to that board for so long after he had the accident riding the horse, Now, if you knew the Dharma, then you could do something even in that state. But he didn't. I mean, he did something not very good for sentient beings and draw more awareness to spinal cord injuries. But, he never, when he got up that morning, he never thought that I'm going to be severely injured today. Yeah, and yet there it was. Okay, so really to appreciate our opportunity, our health. Okay, and then the 5 circumstantial opportunities: the appearance of the Buddha, 1, his having given teachings, 2, the prevalence of the doctrine, 3, its followers, 4, and the presence of sincere patrons and benefactors, 5. Okay, so these are 5 circumstantial opportunities, things in our environment. So we live at a time when the Buddha appeared. So in our case, it was Shakyamuni Buddha who appeared on the earth. Not only did the Buddha appear, but he gave teachings. Imagine what would have happened if the Buddha was born but didn't give teachings. These are very interesting things to meditate on. Yeah? And not only did he give the teachings, but the teachings still exist. Okay? And that's very important, because the teachings could have degenerated to a certain point where they no longer exist, and then we'd really be in trouble. Okay? So in terms of the Dharma being stable and flourishing, there's different ways to describe this. One way is in terms of where you have the scriptural Dharma and the insight Dharma. So the scriptural Dharma refers to the 3 baskets: the Vinaya, Sutra, and Abhidharma. Okay, you should remember those. You should know what the 3 baskets are. Okay, so where the scriptural Dharma is, and where the insight Dharma is. So the insight Dharma is where people are practicing the 3 higher trainings. Yeah, where some people have attained the true cessation and actualized the true path. Okay, so that's one way to define a place where the Dharma is flourishing or where it's stable. A second way is according to Sutra, and that is a place where the Sangha abides, so where it's possible to take ordination. So that's an important thing, America, it's much more difficult to take ordination here. Much more difficult. Having a Sangha community come together is not so easy to have. Okay, that's what we're trying to establish at the Abbey, to have enough fully ordained monastics here to be able to give the ordination. But you need to take it, and then people need to keep it for a certain number of years before it can be given. So our country still has a way to go in that regard. Yeah. And then in terms of the Tantra, a Dharma flourishing is where the Guhya Samaja Tantra exists and where it's taught and practiced. So Guhya Samaja or Sangwadupa in Tibetan. So we can see this condition is not so easy, living in a place where Dharma is readily available. Yeah, and you can see why it's so important to have the Abbey. Okay, then the fourth condition is to have its followers. Yeah, and so to have a Sangha community present. Now, just the whole thing about Sangha community, because the term Sangha is not very well understood in America today. So often people refer to Sangha as anybody who comes to the Buddhist center or anybody who's a part of a Buddhist group. But that's not really the Sangha. Yeah, the Sangha that we take refuge in are the Aryas, those who have realized emptiness directly. And as a representative of the Arya Sangha, there's a group of 4 or more fully ordained ones. Okay? So having a community of ordained monastics is part of us having a precious human life. Okay? It's not because monastics are superior. It's not because there's elitism going on. It's because if there's a monastery, there's a place where people can come and practice. And there's a body of people who are making it their entire life to study and practice and pass down the teachings. Yeah, they don't have to go to work. They don't have to raise children. You know, they don't get involved in so many of these other activities, so they have more time for the Dharma, and that benefits the entire society. Okay? And then the 10th condition is having the presence of sincere patrons and benefactors. So if we are a sincere practitioner, and if we want to dedicate our life to practicing the Dharma, and in particular if we want to become a monastic, or you want to do a long retreat after you've done enough study and preparation, then you need a teacher to guide you, and you need benefactors to help you with your living. Why? Because it's very difficult to focus intensely on the Dharma if you also have so many other activities you have to take care of. It's very hard. Okay, so to have the support of kind people who really see the value in your spiritual practice and are willing to give you food, shelter, medicine, and clothing, and then from your side to be content with what is offered and not be demanding and dissatisfied, but really appreciating that other people support us in our Dharma practice and give us this opportunity. And then not only that, but we need teachers. We need people who can guide us and who can, give us the teachings, who can give us the precepts, who can give us the instructions on how to practice, who can answer our questions, who can encourage us when we, get discouraged or when we hit a glitch in our practice. Okay, so having the kindness of patrons and teachers is very, very important in our lives. So all these 10 conditions, when you meditate on them, really go through and see how you have them. And imagine as you're meditating also not having them. What would it be like that there's no Sangha community where you are, or where you don't live in a central land? What would it be like to live in a place where religion is oppressed? Yeah, I remember Alex Berzin telling me one time, many years ago, when Czechoslovakia was still under communist rule. He went there to teach the Dharma, and what they had to do, forget about having a center or anything like that. They met in somebody's home, and everybody had to come separately because you couldn't have it be seen that a number of people were coming to the same place at the same time. The flat had 2 rooms. The Dharma teaching was in the back room. In the front room, they had a round table, and they had cards dealt out and drinks. So in case the police knocked on the door, they could go from the back room to the front room and be playing cards when the police entered. So they wouldn't get busted for listening to a Dharma talk. Yeah. Did you see what it's like to appreciate our precious human life? Or in Tibet, after the communist takeover, if they saw you moving your lips, saying mantra or prayer, you would get thrown in prison and beaten. Yeah. So just, spend some time thinking of living in that kind of situation. And how are you going to practice? We might have all sorts of fancy ideas of, oh, I'm a strong practitioner, and even when I'm in prison, I'll do Tonglen meditation, and I'll develop compassion, and I'll keep my precepts even if I'm in prison. But look at how we are even now. One day, our stomach feels bad. Forget our Dharma practice. Yeah, it's bye-bye. So we think we're going to practice in some difficult situation? Yeah, so, we need to really appreciate the good situation we have now. Because it's very difficult to have this opportunity, and it can go away like this. Yeah? And if you look in the West nowadays, it's very hard to have a good situation for practice. Most people have to go out, earn a living. So it takes hours every day. Then you have your family, your mortgage, your social life, all these different things. And if you try and practice the Dharma, like, many of the people here have ordained, then what does your family say? Are you crazy? What do your colleagues at work say? Get a life. Yeah, it's actually not so easy to dedicate one's life full-time to the Dharma. So, we need to appreciate having that circumstance available to us, and then not just use it, hanging around chatting or, drinking tea or whatever. That's a total waste of our precious human life, because the fact is that when we die, we can't rerun our life and go live it again and, use the time better. So when we really meditate strongly on precious human life, self-pity disappears. Okay? And so this meditation is also a very good antidote to depression. Yeah? But it only works for people for whom Dharma is a priority. If worldly things are your priority, this meditation won't work to pull you out of your depression. Okay? You have to really have Dharma as a priority. And then it's just, wow, you think of precious human life and you are so happy. So I think it's important every day when we wake up, to think, wow, I have a precious human life. This is incredible. Because it is. Okay. Why is it useful? First of all, because we can use it to create the causes for good future lives within samsara. But that's only a stopgap measure. The real reason our precious human life is so valuable is we can use it to create the causes for liberation. And even more valuable, we can use it to create the causes for full enlightenment. Yeah, to become a fully enlightened Buddha. And then also we can make our life meaningful moment by moment by practicing the thought training teachings. Yeah, so our life is something very precious, extremely worthwhile and meaningful. Yeah, and we really need to feel this, And then when we have this, when we meditate strongly on this, and I'm not talking about, meditating on it, once every 3 weeks or something, but when you really focus on this meditation, yeah, then all of our little hurts, all of our little childhood things, all of this kind of stuff, it like fades into the background because who cares? Yeah, we have a precious human life right now. That's the most important thing. My previous samsara was not perfect. Why did I ever expect it to be anyway? Yeah, and so we let go of that stuff. Okay, so he says it is important to think over these 10 unique opportunities. Now, like I said, not just once in a while, but really consistently. Try doing a meditation like, the 8 freedoms and 10 fortunes. Try doing that daily for a period of time and see what happens to your mind. Okay. So it continues, the general basis for attaining ultimate definite goodness. Okay, so that means liberation or enlightenment. So the basis is birth as a human being. But of such births among the three continents, birth as a human being in the southern continent is praised in all the sutras and tantras as the best working basis for attaining liberation. Okay, so according to the Abhidharmakosha vision of the universe, there's the center mountain, Mount Meru, and then you have 4 continents. And the human beings in our continent, which is the southern one, have the best basis for practicing the Dharma, because we also have the opportunity to practice the Tantra and the opportunity to take precepts. Okay. The Master Ashvaghosha says, when you have obtained a human life with the potential to go beyond cyclic existence, the most excellent potential of the awakening mind, that means bodhicitta, more precious than a wish-granting jewel, what wise person would not make it fruitful? Okay? So when we really think about how much, and we'll come to this section about the causes for attaining a precious human life, and how much we had to do in a previous life to get this opportunity, and how much benefit we can create with it, if we don't do that, then how can we consider ourselves a wise person? We can't. We're a fool. And then Shantideva says in Guide to a Bodhisattva's Way of Life, so if when I have found such leisure as this, I do not attune myself to what is wholesome, there could be no greater deception and no greater folly. So when we have a precious human rebirth like this, it's difficult to get, doesn't last long. Okay, if we don't attune ourselves to what is wholesome, in other words, if we don't transform our mind, if we don't keep our precepts well, if we don't engage in our practices, if we don't try and live the Dharma on a daily basis in our relations, in our relationships with others, then there could be no greater deception and no greater folly. So we're just deceiving ourselves, aren't we? Shantideva continues, and if, having understood this, I still continue to be slothful, when the hour of death arrives, tremendous grief will rear its head. So if I understand that my life is meaningful and valuable, and that it's important to engage in virtue, and instead I still keep lying around, sleeping too long, chit-chatting with everybody, watching television, watching movies, surfing the internet, just, driving here and driving there, so slothful doesn't mean just lying around. It means that, but it also means being busy doing useless things. Then when the hour of death arrives, and we realize, whoa, I had this whole opportunity to practice the Dharma, and I wasted it, then what mental state are we going to die in? So much incredible regret and remorse, aren't we? So much incredible remorse. It's like I had this whole opportunity to practice the Dharma that would have enabled me to die peacefully and feel positive about my next rebirth, and instead I spent it watching movies, eating chips, surfing the internet, playing around, and now I have nothing to show for it as I'm dying and going into my next rebirth, except the negative karma I created by, just trying to be famous and rich and popular and, all this kind of stuff. It's a huge source of regret at the time of death. Yeah. Whereas if you really practice well, then when you die, there's no regret and no fear. Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? Death comes, there's no regret, there's no fear. And for really excellent practitioners, the time of death is a lot of fun. Yeah, because it's the time when they can really meditate on emptiness very well. Shantideva says, then if my body blazes for a long time in the unbearable flames of hell, inevitably my mind will be tormented by fires of an unendurable remorse. So you're born in the hell realms, and you have this awareness that you wasted your precious life before, and so much remorse. Having found by chance this beneficial state so hard to find, if now, while able to discriminate, I am once again led into the hells, then it is as though I were mindless, like one hypnotized by a spell, not even knowing what causes my confusion or what is dwelling inside me. So if I know all this about my precious human life, I know what's valuable in life, and then I still blow it, it's as if I didn't have a mind, or like I was hypnotized by a spell and have no even awareness of what I'm doing or what's causing my confusion, because I'm just living on automatic, following my attachments. Impulse comes into mind, we follow it. Yeah? And we're just seeking the pleasure of this life. And at the end of this life, where's the pleasure of this life? All the pleasure that we got, where is it? It's gone. Okay. Again, the great Ashvaghosha says, whoever is rich in virtue has accumulated it over countless eons. But he who, because of delusion, does not gather such treasure in this life, will in his lives to come be imprisoned in a house of woe, like a merchant returning empty-handed from the island of jewels. Without the path of 10 virtues, there is no way to obtain a human birth, without which there is no happiness, and only suffering remains. Not to follow such a path is an act of supreme stupidity. It's true, isn't it? Isn't it? Yeah. So we have this life now, because over a long time we accumulated virtue, and now we have the chance to do that again and to either even further our virtue and our wholesome practices, but we don't do that. Then it's like a merchant who went to a place where they could get anything they wanted, an island of free jewels, but they came home with sand instead of jewels. So that's like us. We have the opportunity to do so much Dharma practice to really transform our mind. And instead of doing that, we spend our time following our attachment, getting angry, getting jealous, oversleeping, overeating, drinking and drugging, watching movies, playing golf. Uh-oh. Now half the audience isn't going to tune in anymore. I criticize golf. Oh dear. But our whole life can go by. Yeah, so doing that is really an act of stupidity. Thinking about this will give rise to a wish to take the essence of this teaching to heart. As the guide to a bodhisattva's life says, now, having paid my body its wages, I shall turn my life to something meaningful. Okay? Paying your body its wages means you eat and you sleep and you take medicine and you take care of your body as you need to keep it healthy. Okay? So you've done that. You've paid its body its wages. But now you're going to turn your life into something meaningful and use this body and use your mind and use your time to create merit and to purify your mind and to plant the seeds of the Dharma in your mind by hearing teachings, by reciting scriptures, by contemplating, by meditating, okay, by making prostrations, by making offerings, all these things. Okay. Shantideva also says, relying on the boat of a human body, free yourself from the great river of pain. As it is hard to find this boat again, this is no time to sleep, you fool. So our precious human life is like a boat. Yeah. We often have this image of going to the other shore. Okay. Paramita means to cross over, to reach far. So our precious human life is like a boat that enables us to go from the shore of samsara to the shore of nirvana. Okay, so to cross over. Yeah, and we're crossing over this great river of pain. As it's hard to find this such a precious human life again, it's no time to sleep, meaning to waste time. Okay? Because it is difficult to have a precious human life. It's very difficult to create the causes. We'll get into that. Very difficult. Potawat tells us the following stories in his teachings by examples. And this is what I was referring to, some of the Tibetan examples about the preciousnesses of our life. I find these stories quite funny because I don't find them funny. In other words, I remember some of these stories the first time my teachers would tell them. You know, the group of Westerners were all sitting there like, you know. So it's in that way that the stories are funny. Okay, so the first one. Once a man was plowing his field when he turned up an earthworm. To his amazement, the red worm stood on end and prostrated to a nearby image of the Buddha. It is equally rare for someone like us, just coming up from a bad state of rebirth, to turn up as a human being and do something positive and spiritually beneficial. Whoa. Okay? So while we were excavating for Gautami House, did anybody see an earthworm who stood up and prostrated to an image of the Buddha? Yeah? So this is very rare. Okay? So it's like us, you know, having been born in the lower realms of rebirth for quite a long time, we've come up out of that. We have a precious human life. Okay? And to do something positive is rare, like the earthworm bowing to the Buddha. Okay? So that's why I say we really have to respect that part of us that wants to practice. And that's why it's so important for us to respect all the other people who are creating virtue. You know, and all of our Dharma friends, and in Dharma centers and monasteries and temples, it's so important that we respect each other, because these people are all people who really value the Dharma and want to transform their minds. So within a Dharma center, to have competition and factions and jealousy, all of that is so stupid, totally stupid. Yeah, because, you know, we've come up out of the ground like this earthworm. Yeah, and why fight with all the other earthworms? How silly, you know, just bow to the Buddha. It's that rare. Okay, so do something positive with our life. Okay, second story. Oh, I remember this one so well. On another occasion, a man with no legs was resting on the edge of a short drop, a short cliff. He lost his balance and, falling off, landed on the back of a wild ass beneath. The startled beast ran off at a gallop, and the man hung on for dear life, shouting with glee, "If I don't enjoy it now, when else will a cripple like me get the chance to ride on an ass?" Well, I find them funny now. 30 years ago, I was... Likewise, we should see how rare our lives are and take joyful advantage of them. Okay? So what chance does a person with no legs have of falling off the cliff and just happening to land on a wild ass who happened to be right below him? And before falling off, he grabbed onto the mane, and as the ass took off, the guy was screaming with glee how happy he was to ride on the back of this donkey, or this mule or whatever. What's an ass? Is an ass a donkey or a mule? Donkey. Okay? So how rare that is for that to happen. So just as this guy felt so thrilled by his opportunity to ride at top speed on the back of a donkey, we should feel even more happy to have a precious human life, okay, and take joyful advantage of it. Okay, next story. I remember this one too. Once a man from Sang came to Lhasa. He had never eaten fish before, so when he got the chance, he gorged himself on this rare treat. Naturally, it made him sick. But as he was about to vomit, he tied a rope around his neck so as not to waste any of what he had eaten.
The visuals are strong.
We should be as unwilling to waste even a moment of our precious human lives. Okay? Okay, next story. On an occasion when his family was able to enjoy a rare delicacy, sweet buttered barley flour. Delicious. A small boy, hoping to get an extra helping, held his hand out in front of him after hiding his share behind his back, where a dog ate it, leaving him none. We should take whatever opportunities we have to put the teachings into practice, rather than simply trying to collect more. Good point, isn't it? Yeah, we should put into practice what we've learned instead of just collecting more, because like this little boy, he wound up with nothing. Okay. From the above, we can understand the importance of seeking a birth with high status. The cause of birth with the high status of a human being or God is familiarity with the three types of ethics, and life as a human being of this world is an excellent basis for this. Okay, so in order to create what's called high status, it doesn't mean status in our usual word, but it means a good rebirth as a human being or as a God. Then the causes are familiarity with the three types of ethics. So the ethics of abandoning what is non-virtue, the ethics of creating virtue, the ethics of benefiting sentient beings. And our present life as a human being in this southern continent is an excellent basis with which we can create this kind of virtue. So therefore, we shouldn't take it for granted. Okay. As it said, when you have obtained birth as a human of this world, which is so difficult to obtain, you should practice virtue with the utmost effort. So it's not just a thing of, oh, I have a precious human life, how fortunate I am, this is great, but it's using the precious human life to create more virtue. Okay? So it's not just recognizing that we have it, but it's using it to create virtue. Yeah. So that means to really practice the Dharma. What does that mean? Yeah? And there's one story. I haven't read ahead. I don't know if it's in here or not. It might be. So my details may not match here. But a story that made a very strong impression on me very early on when I met the Dharma, of, I think it was about Lama Atisha, and he was near a stupa, and he saw a man circumambulating the stupa. This man was going round and round and round the stupa, and Lama Atisha said, "Oh, it's very nice, you're circumambulating the stupa, but why don't you practice the Dharma?" The man was kind of, "Well, I thought I was, I'm walking around this holy object. Isn't that creating virtue? Aren't I practicing the Dharma? Well, what does this guy mean?" So then he thought, well, okay, I'll do some prostrations. Maybe that's better. So then he started doing lots and lots of prostrations. And then the next few days went by, and Lama Tisha said, "Oh, very nice that you're doing prostrations, but it would be even better if you would practice the Dharma." Man's really going, what's happening here? I thought I was. So then he thought, okay, I'll sit and read some Dharma texts. And so you find this in Asia sometimes, people sitting at the roadside and they're just reading the Dharma text out loud, okay? So he sat down, he had his text, and he's going blah, 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 because they like to read really fast. And Atisha came by and said, "Oh, very nice you're reciting the sutras, but it'd be even better if you practice the Dharma." So the man's totally confused at this point. It's like, I've circumambulated, I've done prostrations, I've even recited the sutras, what the Buddha said. Why are you telling me that I'm not practicing the Dharma? So he said to Lama Atisha, "What do you mean? What's Dharma practice?" So Lama Atisha said, "Transform your mind and abandon the 8 worldly concerns." Okay, so that's the essence of Dharma practice, okay? Transform our mind. Transform it from what into what? From non-virtue into virtue, okay? From ignorance, anger, and attachment, from resistance and jealousy and sloth and excuses into, a mind that's soft, that cares about others, that wants to contribute to the welfare of the world, that wants to continue the Dharma in the world for the benefit of others. Transform our mind, okay? Now, nobody else can see us transform our mind, Nobody can see our mind. So, this man, he was doing all the external things that other people could see, circumambulating, prostrating, reading the scriptures. And he thought doing things that other people could see, all these activities, was Dharma practice. But it's not, because if we don't use those activities to transform our mind, we could even generate more ego. Look how good I am, I'm circumambulating the stupa. Look how good I am, I'm bowing, I'm reading the scriptures. Okay? So really transforming the mind. Like I said, nobody can see us do that. And you don't have to be in a temple on Sunday morning or on Thursday night, You can do it wherever you are. You just change the way your mind is thinking. So when the mind is going into a negative state, you apply the antidotes and you change it and transform it. Okay? And in particular, the way that we want to change it and transform it at the beginning of our Dharma practice is by abandoning the 8 worldly concerns. Okay? Now, do you remember the 8 worldly concerns? You remember them? Okay, so there's 4 pairs. First one? Okay, so attachment to money and material possessions, and, or delight in them, and then dejection when you don't get them, when they're taken away from you. Okay? How many of you have those 2? Yep, we're that way, aren't we? Yeah. Next two. Yeah, okay. So feeling delight when we're praised and getting bummed out when we're criticized. Oh, I signed up for that one. Get me off that list. That one's terrible, isn't it? You know, somebody says some sweet words and we are like, made my day. And then the next person comes along and says something critical and we're just like slumping, you know? Anybody here have those two? Okay. Next two? Reputation, okay? So feeling delight at having a good reputation. Somebody says you're the best softball player in Eastern Washington. You know? So whatever our thing is that we want to be known as best at, we're the best tap dancer, we're the best football coach, we're the best who knows what. We want to be the best and have a large group of people know about it. We even want people to know that we can sit the longest in retreat, that we've taken the most initiations, you know? So all this kind of way. Good reputation. And then the flip side is feeling totally dejected when we have a bad reputation. Whether it's deserved or not, if people talk behind us, about us, behind our back, and then everybody shuns us, oh, we're a wreck, aren't we? Totally a wreck. Huh? And who has that problem? Yeah. And then the last set. Yeah, okay. So feeling delight when we have contact with nice sense objects. We want to see nice things, hear nice things, smell nice things, taste good food, nice tactile sensations. Okay. And then we feel very dejected when, you know, we have to look at ugly things or hear unpleasant music or awful smells or terrible food. Oh, we go ballistic when the food's bad, don't we? You know? And bad sensations with, you know, it's too hot, too cold, we get hurt, you know? Yeah? Who has that problem? I mean, look at all of us, yeah? We have all 8 worldly concerns perfected to a T. Yeah, arising spontaneously, effortlessly. You know, you hear those words in Dharma practice a lot, you know, spontaneous, effortless. We like those words. Oh, I don't have to make an effort. Except in our mind, look what arises spontaneously and effortlessly. Oh my goodness, you know? So that's why we need to keep transforming our mind. That's what transforming our mind means, is counteracting those 8 worldly concerns. Yeah, because how are we going to get anywhere in our practice if we can't abandon the obsession with the pleasure of this life? Yeah? I've been thinking, you know, recently, because, you know, so often in the sutras, the Buddha talks about the sense organs, you know, and just how the sense objects, the sense organs, or sense powers, the consciousnesses, you know, and how they arise, how we're so tied to our senses. Yeah? So that includes the mental sense, but especially the 5 sensual senses. Yeah? And how all day long our mind is outwardly directed at sense objects. Yeah? And here are these sense objects. They're impermanent. They're in the nature of dukkha. They have no inherent essence. And yet our mind is so completely drawn into them and obsessing with them all the time. Yeah, it's sad, isn't it? You know, sometimes when we look at our own situation and our practice, it's sad. Yeah. So really, you know, being aware of that, gee, how stuck I am on sense objects. Yeah. And, our relationships with other people fall in that category too. We tend to think, oh, well, money and these, food and that stuff, I kind of have that under control. I don't have much problem with sense objects. But relationships with other people, aren't they sense objects too? Yeah? We like to hear nice words from them. We like to see their beautiful smiling face. Yeah? We want to have them hug us, kiss us, yeah, and eat good food with them, and have them wear scents, and but especially the nice ego-pleasing words from other people. That one we are so hooked on, and their smiling face looking at us with total adoration and love. Isn't it? We're totally hooked. Yeah? And those are sense objects, aren't they? So it's so easy for our mind to get stuck on those things and then have a really hard time doing Dharma practice. Yeah? Because we're just revolving around those things all the time, worrying about them, fretting about them. Okay? So I think we should really heed Shantideva's and Ashvaghosha's and Namkapal's advice here and really appreciate the rarity of our precious human life and make it meaningful. Just in whatever small or large way we can. Moment to moment, what does Dharma practice involve in this particular moment? Yeah. How can I let go of attachment? How can I practice fortitude and release anger? How can I extend even a little bit of love and compassion to others? All of this is Dharma practice. And then, doing some study. Yeah, contemplating emptiness. Yeah, so whatever we can do, it's, very, very beneficial. So whether it's a lot or a little, doesn't matter, we should do it.